We often hear that being friendly is a virtue, and there is truth in that statement. But what happens when friendliness goes beyond kindness and starts costing you your future? There is a hidden cost in always being too accommodating, in always saying yes when your instinct tells you otherwise, in always bending to others' demands while silently sacrificing your own dreams. It is subtle, almost invisible, and yet it slowly erodes your energy, your confidence, and your capacity to grow. People who are too friendly often do not see it, because at first, the world rewards them with smiles, compliments, and temporary acceptance. Everyone likes them, everyone trusts them, and everyone leans on them. But there is a price to pay, and it is far higher than most realize. Every time you overextend yourself for someone who does not truly value your efforts, you are taking away from your own potential. Every time you ignore your own priorities to make someone else comfortable, you are teaching yourself that your own goals are secondary. Over-friendliness is like a hidden tax on your life. It drains your energy silently, and often, by the time you recognize it, significant time, opportunities, and even relationships have slipped through your fingers. Think about it when you are too eager to please, when you are always available and always agreeable. People start expecting it as your standard. The kindness that was once admired becomes an entitlement for others. They come to rely on your availability, your patience, and your willingness to bend, and in the process, your own voice is drowned out by the demands of everyone else. You may not even notice that your time is being consumed in small, incremental ways. You stay late to help someone who could have solved their own problem. You rearrange your schedule to accommodate someone else's convenience, and you agree to tasks that are not yours to bear. In the short term, it feels good to be liked, to be seen as dependable, and to avoid conflict. But in the long term, this constant accommodation chips away at your capacity to focus on what truly matters. It is not that helping others is wrong, but when the balance is lost and your own needs and goals are neglected, friendliness transforms into self-sabotage. Over-friendliness is especially dangerous because it hides behind a mask of goodness. People do not accuse you of being weak. In fact, they praise your generosity, your patience, and your ability to connect with others. You are called kind, thoughtful, and understanding, and you carry a sense of pride in that recognition. But deep inside, a quiet frustration begins to grow because you feel stretched too thin, pulled in too many directions, and burdened by obligations that were never truly yours to carry. You start to notice how little time you have for your own aspirations, for your own personal growth, and even for the simple act of caring for yourself. What began as a simple desire to maintain harmony and be liked has now become a cage that limits your potential. It is important to understand that over-friendliness is not an external problem created by others. It is an internal challenge created by your inability to set boundaries, to recognize the value of your own time, and to distinguish between true kindness and misplaced compliance. The world is filled with people who will take advantage of those who cannot say no. And if you continue to give indiscriminately, your life becomes dictated by others' priorities rather than your own. The hidden cost is not just practical, it is emotional and psychological. You may feel exhausted, undervalued, or even resentful. You may question your own worth or struggle with guilt every time you assert yourself, because society tells you that friendliness is always virtuous. But real growth, real achievement, and real fulfillment do not come from liked by everyone. They come from understanding your limits, valuing your own purpose, and learning that saying no is not rejection. It is protection of your future. Over-friendliness silently teaches people how to treat you, and if left unchecked, it will determine how much they respect you, how much they trust you, and even how far you can go in life. By overextending yourself to accommodate everyone else, you risk losing sight of the path you are meant to walk, and that is a cost no one can afford to pay. Recognizing this hidden price is the first step toward reclaiming control, regaining focus, and realizing that being genuinely strong, effective, and impactful requires more than a friendly smile. It requires courage, boundaries, and the ability to put your own life first when it matters most. The difference between kindness and weakness. Many people confuse kindness with weakness, and this misunderstanding is one of the greatest obstacles to personal growth and success. Kindness is a conscious choice, an act of generosity and empathy that comes from a place of strength. Weakness, on the other hand, is giving away your power, sacrificing your boundaries, and allowing others to dictate how you live under the guise of being nice. True kindness does not mean bending to every demand, saying yes when it goes against your judgment, or compromising your values to please others. Weakness disguises itself as friendliness, masking fear, insecurity, and a desperate need for approval. When you do not recognize the difference, you end up exhausted, resentful, and trapped in a cycle of giving more than you have while receiving far less in return. You convince yourself that being agreeable will make people like you, but over time you realize that constant accommodation often leads to disrespect, manipulation, and the very isolation you were trying to avoid. Kindness requires strength because it demands that you remain firm while offering compassion. A kind person can say no without guilt, correct without anger, and distance themselves from negativity without resentment. Keenness is about lifting others up while remaining grounded in your purpose. Weakness, in contrast, seeks approval at any cost, avoids confrontation even when necessary, and confuses fear of conflict with moral obligation. People who operate from weakness are often exhausted because they carry the weight of others' expectations as if they were their own. They invest energy into relationships that are one-sided, believing that being liked or accepted is more important than protecting their own time, values, and goals. In reality, this pattern leads to frustration, burnout, and a quiet despair that nothing they do is ever enough. The more you bend to everyone else's will, the further you move from your own potential. The difference between kindness and weakness becomes apparent in the decisions you make and the way people respond to you. When you act from kindness, people respect you. They know that your generosity is deliberate, that your support is valuable, and that your time is not to be taken for granted. When you act from weakness, people take you for granted. They notice that you cannot enforce boundaries, that you cannot protect yourself from being exploited, and that your desire to be liked outweighs your ability to assert yourself. Kindness strengthens relationships because it comes from authenticity and integrity. Weakness corrodes relationships because it is transactional. It feeds others' needs while leaving your own neglected. And over time, even those closest to you begin to see your behavior as expected rather than admirable. Understanding this difference requires deep self-reflection. You must ask yourself whether your actions are truly generous or whether they are driven by fear of rejection, fear of conflict, or fear of being alone. True kindness emerges when you act out of abundance, when you offer support without compromising your principles, and when you help others while remaining firmly rooted in your own values. Weakness emerges when your actions are driven by scarcity, when you seek validation at the cost of your well-being, and when you sacrifice your priorities to avoid discomfort or confrontation. Recognizing this distinction is critical because it directly impacts your ability to achieve success, maintain respect, and cultivate meaningful relationships. It is important to remember that people often mistake weakness for kindness, and that is why it can feel difficult to draw boundaries. You may worry that asserting yourself will be perceived as selfish or harsh, but the reality is that true kindness is never misunderstood by those who value it. Strength and empathy can coexist, and when they do, you become a force that inspires respect rather than dependence. The people who truly matter in your life will admire your ability to balance compassion with firmness, generosity with boundaries, and support with self-respect. Weakness, on the other hand, leaves you at the mercy of circumstances, constantly drained, and always one step behind your own potential, because you are giving away what should belong to your future. Protecting your time and energy, one of the most underestimated skills in life is the ability to protect your time and energy, and yet it is one of the most decisive factors in determining your success, happiness, and personal growth. Every day we face countless demands, emails, phone calls, social obligations, and requests from people who may not have our best interests at heart. Many of us respond automatically, saying yes, agreeing to help, or extending our attention in ways that drain us, all in the name of being nice or friendly. Over time, this pattern accumulates into a silent depletion of your potential. Time is the only resource in life that, once spent, cannot be regained. Energy, though renewable to a degree, is easily exhausted when constantly diverted to matters that do not serve your purpose. The cost of failing to protect both is not just lost hours or fleeting fatigue. It is delayed progress, missed opportunities, and a life that moves forward without your full participation. Protecting your time and energy does not mean shutting people out or becoming cold. It means understanding that every choice you make is an investment in your future. Each yes you give to something that does not align with your goals is a no to something that could move you closer to your dreams. Consider this: when you overcommit, you fragment your focus, leaving no room for deep work, creativity, or the strategic thinking that leads to breakthroughs. Your mind, constantly pulled in multiple directions, becomes restless and exhausted, and the quality of your work, relationships, and personal decisions inevitably suffers. The world will always demand more from you than you can reasonably give. And if you do not consciously decide what deserves your attention, you will find your life dictated by other people's priorities rather than your own vision. Energy is just as crucial as time. When you are overly accommodating, emotionally available to everyone, and always trying to solve other people's problems, you gradually erode your inner strength. Emotional fatigue sets in, leaving you irritable, unmotivated, and even resentful toward those you initially wanted to help. Many people do not realize that this invisible drain creates a ripple effect across every aspect of their life. Relationships become strained, performance declines, and even your ability to pursue personal growth is compromised. Protecting your energy is not selfish, it is essential. It is an act of respect toward yourself and toward the people who depend on your best, most focused, and most vibrant self. The art of protection begins with awareness and boundaries. Awareness means recognizing how your time and energy are being spent and identifying areas where they are being wasted or misused. Boundaries mean having the courage to say no when a request does not align with your priorities, to step back from toxic relationships that demand more than they give, and to carve out space for rest, reflection, and growth. Setting boundaries is not a rejection of people. It is a declaration that your life has a direction, that your dreams matter, and that your well-being is non-negotiable. The people who truly respect you will understand, and those who do not will reveal themselves, sparing you wasted energy on relationships that drain rather than uplift. Protecting your time and energy also requires the discipline to prioritize ruthlessly. Not every opportunity is worth pursuing, not every problem is worth solving, and not every relationship is worth maintaining. It requires you to evaluate the return on investment for each commitment, asking whether it brings growth, knowledge, inspiration, or progress closer to your goals. By doing this consistently, you reclaim control over your life, ensuring that your days are not dictated by trivial demands or the convenience of others, but by the pursuit of your own purpose. Ultimately, the decision to protect your time and energy is a decision to honor your potential. It is a recognition that you are not here merely to accommodate everyone else, but to create a life of meaning, achievement, and impact. When you guard your focus and preserve your vitality, you do not become cold or distant. You become stronger, clearer, and more capable of contributing value in the right places. The world may test your boundaries, people may challenge your choices, and pressure will push you to overextend. But each time you protect your time and energy, you reaffirm the most important truth: your life belongs to you. And the only way to achieve greatness is to invest in yourself first, unapologetically and without compromise. The power of saying no is one of the most misunderstood and underutilized tools in life, and yet it is one of the most powerful ways to take control of your destiny. Many people are afraid of saying no because they fear disappointing others, creating conflict, or appearing selfish. They worry that rejecting a request will hurt someone's feelings or damage a relationship. The truth is, when you cannot say no, you hand over control of your life to everyone else around you. You allow their priorities, their moods, and their demands to dictate the course of your day, your energy, and ultimately, your future. Saying no is not about rejecting people. It is about protecting your time, your energy, and your purpose. It is about honoring your own path before attending to the distractions of others. The inability to say no is a silent barrier that prevents people from reaching their full potential. Because when you always say yes, you compromise your focus, dilute your energy, and gradually lose sight of what truly matters in your life. The power of no begins with understanding its value. Every time you say yes to something that is not aligned with your goals, you are taking time and energy away from what could actually move you forward. It is not a matter of being selfish. It is a matter of being strategic. Saying no does not make you unkind, rude, or uncooperative. It makes you intentional. It sends a message to the world that you value your priorities, that your time is precious, and that your life has direction. People who cannot say no often find themselves overwhelmed, exhausted, and frustrated because their lives are filled with obligations that do not serve them. They spread themselves too thin, trying to meet everyone else's expectations, and in the process, neglect the things that would bring them true fulfillment, growth, and success. Learning to say no is the first step in reclaiming control over your life and establishing boundaries that protect your energy. Saying no is also a demonstration of self-respect. It communicates to others that you are not available to be taken advantage of, that your goals and values matter, and that you will not compromise yourself for convenience or approval. People often mistake no for negativity, but in reality, it is a courageous act of clarity. It is a refusal to be pulled off course, a refusal to waste time on matters that do not contribute to your vision. When you say no strategically, you give yourself the space to focus on what matters most, to invest your energy where it will yield the greatest results, and to create boundaries that encourage others to respect your time and intentions. Without the ability to say no, even the most talented, hardworking, and ambitious individuals can find themselves trapped in a cycle of overcommitment and underachievement. The emotional impact of learning to say no cannot be overstated. For many, it is uncomfortable at first because it goes against years of conditioning to please, accommodate, and avoid conflict. You may feel guilty, anxious, or worried about how people will react. But every time you say no, you reinforce your self-worth and your sense of agency. You begin to understand that your life is not meant to revolve around others' expectations, and that asserting your own needs is not a betrayal. It is a declaration of independence. Over time, saying no becomes empowering rather than intimidating. You start to recognize that each no you give is a yes to something far more important: your growth, your goals, your vision, and your future. Saying no also elevates the way people perceive you. When your responses are deliberate rather than automatic, your presence gains weight. Others start to see that your attention, your time, and your energy are valuable, and they begin to respect your decisions rather than take them for granted. The world is full of people who say yes indiscriminately, and they are often overlooked, undervalued, and drained. The few who master the art of no, however, gain clarity, focus, and influence. They are able to channel their energy into the right opportunities, build stronger relationships with intention, and maintain a sense of purpose that guides every action they take. Mastering the power of no is not just a practical skill. It is a mindset shift. It requires courage, self-awareness, and discipline. It demands that you confront the fear of rejection, the discomfort of confrontation, and the illusion that being liked is more important than being respected. Once you embrace no as a tool for protection and empowerment, you unlock the freedom to live intentionally, work efficiently, and focus on what will truly define your life rather than the endless distractions of others. Choosing associations wisely, the people you allow into your life have more influence over your success, happiness, and mindset than almost anything else. And yet most people underestimate the importance of choosing associations wisely. Every relationship carries energy, positive or negative, constructive or draining. And the sum of the energy you absorb from those around you directly impacts your actions, decisions, and potential. It is not enough to be friendly or agreeable. It is critical to be intentional about the company you keep, because your associations define your standards, shape your beliefs, and ultimately determine the trajectory of your life. Surround yourself with people who are complacent, negative, or envious, and their mindset will slowly become yours. Surround yourself with people who are ambitious, disciplined, and supportive, and their energy will push you forward in ways that no self-motivation alone can achieve. Choosing associations wisely is not about elitism or arrogance. It is about self-preservation, growth, and aligning yourself with those who elevate rather than diminish your potential. Most people fail to recognize that negative associations are often disguised as familiarity, comfort, or obligation. Friends from childhood, colleagues who complain constantly, or acquaintances who drain your energy may seem harmless on the surface, but their influence is insidious. Subtle comments, habitual negativity, or even passive skepticism can plant doubts in your mind, erode your confidence, and cause hesitation at moments when decisiveness is required. On the other hand, the right associations act as catalysts for growth. They challenge your thinking, inspire new ideas, and hold you accountable to the standards you set for yourself. When you are intentional about the people you allow into your inner circle, you are not only protecting your energy, but also creating an environment where excellence, ambition, and resilience are the norm rather than the exception. Choosing associations wisely requires self-awareness and courage, because it often involves difficult decisions. It requires the ability to distance yourself from relationships that no longer serve you, even if they were once meaningful. This is not a matter of ego or pride. It is a matter of survival in the pursuit of your dreams. People who remain tethered to negative influences often wonder why their progress is slow, why opportunities seem to bypass them, or why they feel stagnant despite their hard work. The answer is rarely found in a lack of effort. It is found in the company they keep. Toxic associations sap creativity, drain motivation, and cloud judgment. They make mediocrity feel comfortable and challenge feel dangerous. Distancing yourself from them is not cruelty. It is clarity, and it is a necessary step for anyone determined to achieve something extraordinary. The benefits of surrounding yourself with the right people are immediate and long-lasting. When you are with those who encourage growth, celebrate progress, and challenge complacency, you naturally elevate your standards. Their energy becomes contagious, their mindset becomes a mirror, reflecting your own potential, and their support becomes a safety net that allows you to take risks you might otherwise avoid. Choosing associations wisely also creates accountability. The people who genuinely want to see you succeed will not tolerate excuses or half-hearted efforts. They will push you to perform at your best, not because they are demanding or controlling, but because they understand that your success contributes to a greater ecosystem of positivity, inspiration, and mutual progress. It is important to recognize that choosing associations wisely is not a one-time decision. It is an ongoing process. Life will bring people into your path who may be a blessing at one moment and a burden at another. It requires vigilance, discernment, and the willingness to reassess relationships continuously. You must evaluate whether the energy, values, and intentions of those around you align with your own purpose. The moment you find yourself drained, discouraged, or held back, it is time to reconsider the influence of that association. By being deliberate, you create a life in which every relationship adds value, every interaction inspires growth, and every connection propels you toward your highest potential. Ultimately, the company you keep can either act as a ladder to elevate you or a chain to hold you back. When you choose associations wisely, you surround yourself with people who reflect the version of yourself you aspire to become, who push you to achieve more than you thought possible, and who remind you that your potential is far greater than the limitations others might try to impose. This awareness, this intentionality, is a cornerstone of success, and it is a lesson that those who achieve extraordinary results understand better than anyone. Your environment is not just a backdrop to your life. It is a driving force that shapes every choice, every action, and every dream you dare to pursue. Confidence viz. Approval seeking, one of the greatest barriers to personal growth. Achievement and fulfillment is the constant need for approval from others. Many people live their entire lives trying to make everyone around them like them, seeking validation for every choice, and measuring their self-worth through the eyes of those who may not even understand or appreciate their vision. This habit of approval seeking is subtle and deceptive because it masquerades as friendliness, politeness, or social intelligence. At first it feels safe. People smile, compliment, and nod in agreement, and the temporary reassurance creates a sense of belonging. But over time, this need for external validation begins to erode confidence, stifle ambition, and blur the boundaries between your true self and the version you believe others want to see. Confidence and approval seeking may look similar on the surface, but they are polar opposites in their effect on your life. Confidence is self-affirming, rooted in your values, your skills, and your purpose. Approval seeking is dependent, fragile, and ultimately unsustainable because it relies on forces outside your control. Confidence is a quiet power. It does not need to shout, justify, or prove itself to anyone because it knows its own worth. A confident person can take risks, make bold decisions, and follow their vision without being paralyzed by the fear of judgment. Confidence comes from experience, preparation, and a deep understanding of who you are and what you want. It allows you to navigate challenges with composure and to interact with others without losing sight of your own path. Approval seeking, by contrast, is exhausting and deceptive. It requires constant monitoring of others' reactions, second-guessing every word and action, and bending your behavior to fit expectations that are often unclear or contradictory. People who operate from approval-seeking may appear agreeable and friendly, but internally they are tethered to anxiety, self-doubt, and the perpetual fear of rejection. This inner conflict consumes mental energy, undermines decision-making, and prevents them from stepping into their full potential. The problem with approval seeking is that it is a trap. When you define your worth through the eyes of others, you are essentially giving them control over your life. Every compliment temporarily inflates your ego. Every criticism pierces deeply, and every disagreement creates discomfort and hesitation. You are no longer living for yourself, you are performing a role designed to satisfy everyone else. Over time, this behavior becomes a habit, a lens through which every choice is filtered, and it quietly shapes the trajectory of your life in ways you do not even notice. Confidence, on the other hand, liberates you from this cycle. It frees you to pursue what truly matters, to take stands when necessary, and to make decisions that align with your vision regardless of who agrees or disagrees. True confidence also changes the way people respond to you. When you act from authenticity rather than the need for approval, others sense your integrity, your clarity, and your self-respect. They may not always like your choices, but they respect them. Approval seekers often receive attention, but it is superficial, fleeting, and conditional. Confidence cultivates meaningful influence because it is rooted in honesty, decisiveness, and consistency. People are naturally drawn to those who are certain of themselves because certainty inspires trust, leadership, and inspiration. Approval seeking, no matter how charming or likable it may seem, never achieves this effect because it is inherently unstable and reactive. Building confidence requires self-awareness, courage, and persistence. It begins with recognizing the moments when you are acting to please others rather than following your own instincts, and it demands a willingness to step away from the comfort of constant validation. It requires embracing the discomfort of dissent, criticism, or temporary isolation in exchange for long-term growth and authenticity. Confidence is forged in the moments when you make decisions aligned with your values, even if they are unpopular, and when you trust yourself enough to take responsibility for the outcomes. Unlike approval seeking, which is fleeting and reactive, confidence is cumulative and self-reinforcing. Each act of authenticity, each boundary established, and each step toward your goals builds momentum that strengthens your sense of self, deepens your resilience, and amplifies your ability to achieve extraordinary results. The most successful, fulfilled, and respected individuals are those who have learned to release the constant need for approval and replace it with unwavering confidence. They understand that living to please others is a path to mediocrity, frustration, and regret. They prioritize their own vision, their own standards, and their own growth above the fleeting comfort of external validation. Confidence does not mean arrogance or isolation. It means clarity, self-respect, and the courage to stand firm in the face of opinion, pressure, or criticism. It is the force that allows you to navigate life boldly, make impactful decisions, and create a life that is authentically yours, free from the chains of needing everyone else's permission to succeed. Becoming a leader in your own life is one of the most transformative decisions you can ever make. Too often, people allow circumstances, other people's opinions, or societal expectations to dictate the course of their existence. They drift through life reacting to events rather than creating them, hoping that someone else will guide them, approve them, or validate their worth. True leadership, however, begins within. It starts with the realization that you are the captain of your own journey, the architect of your own future, and the person ultimately responsible for the results in your life. Leadership is not about authority over others. It is about mastery over yourself. It is about taking deliberate control of your thoughts, your actions, and your choices so that you no longer allow fear over friendliness, approval seeking, or external pressures to define who you are and what you can achieve. Leading your own life requires courage because it means standing firm in the face of resistance. It means making decisions that may not be popular, taking paths that are less traveled, and prioritizing your own growth, even when others demand your attention or loyalty. Many people avoid leadership in their own lives because it is uncomfortable. It requires honesty, accountability, and the willingness to confront your weaknesses and fears. But leadership is not built in comfort. It is forged in challenge, responsibility, and the consistent exercise of discipline. Every boundary you set, every moment you choose focus over distraction, and every time you act with intention rather than reaction, you are exercising leadership. The more you do this, the more empowered you become, and the more you demonstrate to yourself that your life is yours to shape. A critical aspect of becoming a leader in your own life is mastering self-discipline. Leadership is not about waiting for the perfect opportunity or relying on motivation to strike. It is about consistently making the right choices, even when you do not feel like it. It is about showing up, doing the work, and holding yourself accountable when no one else is watching. People who fail to lead their own lives often fall into patterns of procrastination, over-accommodation, and distraction. They allow external influences to control their focus, their energy, and their decisions. Leaders, on the other hand, take ownership of their actions. They understand that every choice, every interaction, and every moment of effort contributes to the life they are building. Leadership begins with this mindset: your life is your responsibility, and no one else is as invested in your success as you are. Leadership also requires vision, the ability to see beyond immediate circumstances and understand the long-term impact of your decisions. It is the ability to anticipate obstacles, recognize opportunities, and navigate life with clarity of purpose. People who lack leadership drift, reacting to crises rather than proactively creating solutions. They are at the mercy of chance, habit, and the agendas of others. Leaders, however, plan, strategize, and act with intention. They align every choice with their overarching goals and principles. They know that saying no, setting boundaries, choosing associations wisely, and protecting their time and energy are not just isolated actions. They are part of a broader framework of personal leadership. Becoming a leader in your own life transforms how others perceive and interact with you. When you take charge of your thoughts, actions, and destiny, you inspire respect and influence. People naturally gravitate toward those who are decisive, focused, and authentic because leadership radiates confidence and clarity. Leadership in your life is contagious. It elevates not only your own potential, but also those around you. It demonstrates what is possible when someone refuses to be a passive participant in life and chooses instead to design their own path. In the end, becoming a leader in your own life is about empowerment, responsibility, and authenticity. It is about choosing to live intentionally rather than reacting aimlessly, setting boundaries rather than bending to the whims of others, and prioritizing your vision over the fleeting need for approval. Leadership begins with a single decision: to no longer let the circumstances, opinions, or expectations of others dictate your life. When you make that decision, you take the first step toward freedom, clarity, and extraordinary achievement. You claim your power, honor your potential, and step into a life that is fully yours. Leadership in life is not given. It is earned, practiced, and lived every day through your choices, actions, and commitment to being the person capable of turning your dreams into reality.